Good morning and welcome back to the Real Estate Heavyweights Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Ashton Hines. I am a new real estate investor. I'm working on flip number 4. I've got one rental. I do real estate work for other people as a realtor, and I work full-time as a physical therapist assistant in home health. So I try to stay super busy. Fortunately, I have a person in my life named Tavis Westbrook, who is there to help me along with the real estate journey. He is, well, let's call it what it is. He's holding my hand as we get this flip done in Mapleton, in Dallas on Mapleton. He's doing so much work for me. He's trying to get us across that finish line, texting people, calling people, trying to get us going there. So Tavis has flipped over 200 houses. He's got midterm rentals, long-term rentals. He's got a commercial building. He's got a ton of knowledge. And fortunately for me and for you, he's here this morning. And how are you, Tavis?
What's up? Man, I'm good. Man. This has actually been pretty cool because we get to talk even more than we normally do. Doing this together a couple times a week has been pretty good. So, yeah, welcome everybody.
Yes, definitely. We're trying to figure out all of our timing. You know, we don't know what this will look like long term. We want to bring as much value to everyone listening as possible. We live in the Dallas area, so we definitely want to come to you weekly with some pertinent news and things happening in the Dallas area. And then what we do is once a week we do a real deep dive. We're calling it Real Estate Heavyweights University. And right now we're digging into flipping a house because that's what I'm doing. That's what Tavis knows best, I would say. And we're taking it step by step. And if you want to learn how to flip a house, you can basically listen to that, take notes, and you will be good to go. So we're coming to once a week with that. And then on Fridays, we're trying to come with a little bit more news and current events and a little bit of tips of if you're kind of just interested in the real estate industry, if you're a realtor, if you're looking to buy or sell a house, this is definitely the podcast for you. So are you ready to check out the market update for the week, Tavis?
Yeah, what do you got?
Well, not a lot has changed in the DFW area this week as far as the market goes. We're still sitting around 21 to 26 days on the market, depending on which county you're looking at, 26 for the whole MLS. But like I've said before, our MLS goes all the way over to Abilene. It goes up to Wichita Falls. It includes a little bit of Louisiana randomly. But the MLS as a whole, 26 days on the market. Collin County, where we do a lot of our business, where Tavis lives, is 21 days. So depending on where you are, what level of house you're looking at that range, which means things are moving pretty quickly. I was actually at an open house this last weekend, and we had a ton of traffic. I think we had 9 groups come through. It was new to the market. There's a lot of interest. So if you are bringing a house to the market, you have a great chance of selling it quickly if you price it right. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on in this episode. How do you get a house ready to sell? And so I know, Tavis, you haven't listed anything in the last week or two, but the last time we talked, I think you are seeing the same thing, just a lot of activity, a lot of offers on houses.
Yeah, I think the key indicator is just knowing what you're doing and pricing it correctly. I think if you do that, you're going to drive traffic. If you don't do that, you're going to sit and chase the market. And that's why if you look at the MLS data, the amount of price reductions are matching the amount of new listings. So, I don't think it's rocket science. I think it's just people that are having a hard time explaining to the general public why the market is different than what it was a year and a half ago. And, we're in this each and every day. So we're very alert and very aware of what's going on. We're looking at this data every week versus a consumer, thinks their neighbor sold their house yesterday for, $30,000 over asking with 50 offers. And the reality is that was, a year and a half ago. But to them, it feels like it was last month, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just trying to navigate through that. And then, we've talked about this before, just working backwards into it to determine how to price. You also have a tremendous amount of people that got into the business over the last 5 years that is brand new, and it was like, one of the easiest things they could ever do, to get into the business and make $9,000 by sticking a sign in the yard and having people line up because there was no inventory. And now people have got to get back to their skill set and how good they are at understanding the market and dissecting the property and pricing it correctly, not just following a dollar per foot. We've talked about that a lot. So I think it's important to, it's extremely important who you hire and really understand what the skill set is of the agent that you are hiring, and not just how well they advertise or, how many years have they been in the business, et cetera. None of that really matters. It matters really what they do when they're in charge of selling your property.
Yep.
And how they price it and how they explain it and what their knowledge is.
Yep. You're leading into a really good point. We looked at the news. So we'll go ahead and get into the news. And Inman, we've mentioned, is a great source for real estate news. And they are following this, the National Association of Realtors case. And they're estimating if this goes through, that the real estate agent industry is going to drastically change. And I think that they mentioned that they think roughly 80% of real estate agents will probably go away, or 60 to 80% they're estimating. And like you're saying, for a few years there, it was relatively easy to get your license. It is easy to get your license. It's not expensive and it doesn't take much time. You sit down and take some tests. And then that's where you differentiate yourself, is after you're in the business. And a lot of people got used to getting easy listings, making easy money, and not having to do a whole lot of work. And over the next year or two, if this lawsuit goes through, I really think that it's going to become more of a job where you're really going to have to go out, find business, learn how to negotiate, and really work for the money that someone's paying you, which is, who can argue against that? That's probably how it should be. If you want to separate yourself and be a real professional, I think you're going to have a ton of opportunity. But a lot of the casual real estate agents and real estate professionals are probably going to go away. And so that's, as I'm trying to transition from a full-time W-2 job as a therapist going into real estate and wanting to do more of that work, that's something that I'm trying to learn as much as possible about. And honestly, it just comes down to work. Calling people, reaching out, putting yourself out there. And I think if I can do that, I think over the next few years, a lot of people will fall away and there'll be plenty of business out there to have. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive a little bit more into some local news. So in DFW, the Dallas Morning News had an article about a fella that has taken on a franchise for pickleball. And pickleball around here is everywhere all of a sudden. Tavis was mentioning that, last year was kind of this new thing and it's just exploded. I think another article mentioned that Dallas is kind of this epicenter of pickleball. I'm not really sure why. But this guy, he has purchased a franchise, and interesting to us is he actually is taking over an Albertsons, vacant Albertsons location that's in Plano near where Tavis lives. And he's going to convert it into pickleball. And it's this really cool concept of converting existing space, trying to find a use for it without having to tear it down. And it's so freaking hot around here. I think this is going to be a huge movement to have more and more things moving inside. I don't know what you think. Have you ever played pickleball, Tavis?
I've never played it. I think, we first were aware of it back in the beginning part of 2020 before COVID hit. And a friend of mine were working out at the local rec center, and we started seeing it kind of become popularity. In the mornings they would do it in the basketball court, and we were like, "What is going on? What is that?" And so, anyways, that was when I was first introduced to it, and it was just gaining popularity then, and they were starting to make it more popular at that point in time. And we talked about playing, we never did. But it was interesting. And then, of course, now here we are 3 years later, and I mean, it's blown up, and now it's become a big entertainment, based business. we were talking about this a little bit offline. I think it's funny because I don't see this being a huge attractor, but then yet again, you look at something like Topgolf and how it's ran, and people that don't like to golf, like my wife is not, she has no interest in golfing, but Topgolf makes it fun, and you involve, food and beverages and entertainment, and then you get the creativity with the electronic aspect of it, and making fun with the games, right, and making it cool, and it takes the stress out of the game, right, to where it's not that serious, and you just get to have fun, and so it's interesting, I mean, I guess you go back to like bowling alleys and things like that, I mean, those have been around forever. And again, it's not something that somebody may do or take serious every day, but it's definitely something that a family can go and do as an event or corporate events and things like that. So,
yeah,
I think it's a great use of space when you look at that. Albertson's been vacant for a long time, and the grocery store industry is, becoming very, very, very challenging compared to what it used to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if you're not from Texas, this will make zero sense to you, but H-E-B has come to town in the last year for us. And H-E-B is a Texas-based grocery chain that was huge in parts of the state, but had never really come to the Dallas market. Now in the last year, they've opened up several locations. So the existing grocery stores here are scrambling to try to compete with H-E-B. And I'm sure if you were struggling to begin with, it's not working out for you. So some of these spaces, and part of it too is just, they anticipate growth in certain parts of town. It doesn't work out as much. Other parts become hot. And so these little corners are just not as traffic driven as they thought they were going to be. And so those stores go away. But as far as pickleball goes, randomly Topgolf, I think, is based in Dallas. Main Event, Dave & Buster's are headquartered here. There's a lot of really cool entertainment companies, and so that intellectual property that people that they can pull from, there is a definite synergistic energy here with that idea, the entertainment space, and so it's kind of cool. I hope it takes off. Anything that involves nachos and an ice cold blue moon, and also a little bit of activity would be kind of cool. So we have to represent for the heavyweight portion of the real estate heavyweights. So now let's get to a little bit of interesting national news. There's a really cool article that was written about a real estate agent, I think in one of the Dakotas, North Dakota maybe. And he set a record for the longest open house. And I think it was 72 hours. This is something that he's been doing to raise money. He raised $40,000 for Alzheimer's research. And it's super cool. He put together pretty much a huge event with a builder, and he brought in a lot of vendors, and they kept the house open for 72 hours straight. I don't think he was there the whole time. I think some people he worked with, and they had activities and events going, and they just raised money going through this process. It was after his dad had passed away a few years ago, and he wanted to do something cool. So I just thought that was a really, really interesting intersection. I do therapy with folks with memory issues, and so when I saw that, I thought that was really cool. Maybe at some point would be nice to do some sort of fundraiser to help out a cause. And I just came off of doing a 2-hour open house, and I could not imagine trying to organize the activities for a 72-hour open house. That would be quite the undertaking. So I don't know when the last time you did an open house was, Tavis, but I like them. I like talking to people. It gives me a chance to sort of answer questions and sort of sharpen the knife of knowledge of knowing what people are interested in and all that sort of thing. But I don't know if that's something you do regularly anymore.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a long time. And I never had a tremendous amount of success with it. I guess over the years, it resulted in a few, contacts and leads and some buyers, but I don't know. It's always been kind of a weird thing for me. I think because, in that position. I mean, I guess it's different if it's not your listing, right? Then it's a little bit easier to kind of play the role.
Yeah.
And support the buyer. I think in the ones I've done in the past, I represented the seller, so it's always kind of an odd predicament that you're in to, play that role. But nevertheless, I mean, open houses have gained activity again since COVID compared to what they used to get. I mean, lately it seems like a lot of people are taking that approach, and that may be just the way that the market's shifting in the internet-based scenario. And again, buyers that don't have a lot of knowledge on how representation works, they feel like showing up to the open house is like showing up to a builder unrepresented, and they're going to get a better deal because of it. And that, of course, is false, but a lot of people believe that, right? And that's just like the majority of people that go to builders directly thinking they're going to get a better deal. But anyways, that's my 2 cents.
There's your 2 cents. Well, for me, I actually have, I have a decent amount of business that's come from open houses. Working full time, sometimes the weekends is really the only sometimes the weekends is the only time I don't have anything else going on. As far as work, and if we're slow with the family events, I really try to do open houses, and I think I've had about 4 transactions that have come directly from open houses, or this one, and then I sold it later or something like that. So for me, it's worth it, and I actually like answering questions and learning how to present a house and learning how I actually enjoy, from a flipper standpoint, telling people, okay, this is how let's go look at the air conditioner. You want to know how old the air conditioner is? Okay, well, here's the tag for that. You want to know how old the dishwasher is? Well, actually, there's a little label here. And, almost doing investigative work while I'm at the house, saying, I wonder if they've ever renovated this. I wonder if they've had foundation issues, and kind of looking around. It's I don't know. It's fun for me. So anyway, all right. So
I think it's a great connecting tool.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so the next piece of news we would like to tackle is to talk a little bit about Katy Perry. I know Tavis wakes up every morning and he has a reminder on Google that says, what is Katy Perry up to? And so over the last few days, he's been busy reading this article that in California, Katy Perry might have a law named after her. And sometimes this would probably be an honor, and it's something sort of as your legacy. This would not be good for her, because evidently she is in a lawsuit. Interestingly, for the second time, she's being sued over real estate. She tried to buy a piece of real estate from a convent at one point and got into a lawsuit over that. And one of the nuns died in court, as the article said, oddly. But this is actually a law that's going to go into place that is called the Protecting Elderly Realty for Retirement Years Act, which is the Perry Act, which is a 72-hour cool-down period for real estate transactions where one of the parties is over 75. Now, this is in California, but evidently a lot of other lawmakers are interested in this. And what happened was she got into a deal with someone who they had a family member or family members who later said he was not of sound mind when he agreed to this real estate transaction. And so now they're fighting Katy Perry in court. And I just thought it was a really interesting, actually, take. I ran into this. I had a title company that we did everything right, but they definitely said you need to dot your I's and cross your T's. We had a family that was selling their house. They had done the power of attorney properly, but one of the reasons they were selling is because the mother had started having some memory problems and they were going to assisted living. So they had gone through all the lawyers and had power of attorney done earlier, and they did it the right way. But when I was talking with the title company, they said, hey, for future reference, if this ever comes up and the families have not done their work, this can be a huge issue. And if you have any concern in your family that is memory or Alzheimer's or any sort of medical deficit could get in the way of making good decisions, you need to think about that. You need to plan ahead, because if you get into a real estate transaction and anyone questions whether or not you know what you're doing, it will tie it up for a long time. I don't know if you've ever had anything to do with that, Tavis, with some of your buying. And I know some of the houses you've bought, I'm sure, from older folks. And is that something you've ever had to deal with?
So yes, I mean, similar to yours, right, where there was multiple layers and people involved and attorneys that, with the proper power of attorneys associated, and et cetera. But I was reading this article, and it brought up a couple good points. One is, as a seller, your rights to back out of a contract are very, very tough. Buyers have pretty much the full authority to decide if they want to pursue purchasing the house or not. There's many exit clauses when it comes to the buyer's position to our contracts here in Texas. I can't speak to other contracts in other states, but in our state, the buyer has a lot of authority to back out with minimum issue, if you will. So, for instance, we have option periods. You have title periods in which that we've got to get title back. You've got a survey contingency. You've got a finance contingency. We've got HOA contingencies. There's lots of contingencies representing on the buy side that makes it very difficult, or that makes it easy for the buyer to back out. But on the other side of that, if the seller agrees, the seller doesn't have those rights to back out. They can't decide after they agreed to sell the home without, facing bigger issues. So, I just recently had that conversation with some family of mine that are dealing with selling an estate in my family, and they wanted to go into contract, but right now the probate's not done. And I'm like, there's no reason to do that. Because the probate's not completed yet. You can't truly close on the house and give good title. So there's no reason to go into contract. And their mindset was, that they could just back out if they didn't want to do the deal. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. So don't tie yourself up in this deal. We won't have a problem selling it when we have authority to allow it to sell. But so that's one key thing to think about, and I'm sure that's what happened in this case, right? I mean, the seller signed the documents. Supposedly in the article, that he was high on drugs. That was the argument, that he had a surgery. He was high on painkillers. He agreed to the deal, and then a few days later, regretted the deal and tried to back out. And so all of a sudden, there's been this lawsuit. And so I'm assuming that 72 hours is kind of like what we have like in the car industry, right? Where you have 72 hours to agree to the deal. Basically, like if you don't like it, you can return the vehicle within 72 hours or something like that. So I'm assuming that's what that timeline is that if you sign the contract, you have 72 hours right of rescission to decide to continue as a seller or not. Is that what you understood?
Yeah, I guess my question would be, and I didn't see the details of this, was, okay, typically when you sign that contract and now you're starting the timeline. And so if I have an option period that's, say, 7 days, so now do we wait 3 days and then the option period starts? I would imagine maybe that's what they will build into it, to where, okay, we're just going to all pause for 3 days and then we get going. And then I have my option period and inspection period and all that sort of thing. That was the only, I was like, okay, I guess they just go ahead and tack that an extra 3 days onto the top in the front of the contract. But yeah, I mean, that's what I understand. I don't think it's a horrible idea. I'm not sure, I know in the car industry, they don't really make any sort of exception for age. It's just, if you want to back out in 3 days, you back out in 3 days. And I guess what would be interesting is to know, okay, if this goes over, well, at some point, do we think maybe it'll go down the line? And everyone has that. You have that seller's advocacy that says, all right, we're going to have a cooling off period. And if in 3 days you can go, back out of it, who knows what it'll look like. But I think it's a good thing working with older. Okay, go ahead, Tavis.
I think, where you run into issue, right, is you run into, a seller agreeing to a contract price and then, hey, I'm under contract for this, and then start making phone calls to other buyers that are interested and, try to outdo it, So I think that's why things exist, that once the seller kind of inks the deal, they're locked in, But it does make sense, if somebody's over 75 years old, there's mental health and things like that that have to do with that situation. And again, I've dealt with plenty of purchases in the past with older folks that don't have a lot of options. I've got a lead now that it's an elderly lady, and she doesn't have anywhere to go. And she's like, I don't know where I'm going to go. I want to do the deal with you, but I don't know where I go next, right? So we've talked about it, and in fact, we've had different conversations. But I mean, that's one of the biggest things is, at that point in time, especially if you don't have income coming in, right? Because you're going to get the net proceeds from what you have, but based on where prices have gone to and things like that, unless you're going into some kind of assisted living or retirement type facility, it's tricky. It's really tricky. And why would you go into some kind of mortgage, at that point in time?
Well, lucky for you, you know someone who knows a little bit about senior living in the Dallas area, and I can help you find something that is actually low income or reduced or assistance. There's a couple places in Plano, and I actually have a really, really good independent living center I like in North Plano that is reasonable, and they offer a lot of different amenities. So I can help you out there too. All right. So why don't we get to this week's design tip of the week? And this is something that, actually, let me do that different. I'm going to do it. And so now we are going to get into the soon-to-be award-winning segment, the design tip of the week. And now I will talk about something that Tavis brought to my attention when I was looking for paint colors for my Polk house that I was flipping several months ago. And super, super great tip was to look at apartment complexes and commercial buildings, but specifically apartment complexes that have been painted recently. And that color scheme, typically those are companies that are huge. They have designers. They've spent a lot of money planning out these efforts, these renovations. And these are colors that they know are going to be relevant for a while. Their time frame is way out, 10 years, trying to make this apartment look relatively new and hip or whatever for as long as possible. And so when I started paying attention to that, it actually made a lot of sense, and it made my decisions for my house over in Richardson easier. And along those lines, Tavis also told me about an app he uses, which is the Sherwin-Williams app, that allows you to find complementary colors and really helps you narrow down certain ideas. And then lastly, the design tip that is super valuable is to go to Sherwin-Williams, get the sample color little $10 bucket, and go to the house and in multiple places put that on the wall or on your cabinet or whatever you're going to do, so you know what that paint looks like in the home. And I would do it in several different areas because lighting is always different in different areas. So Tavis, thank you very much for that tip. I don't know if I did that justice or if you have any other your 2 cents on the color tip, but it has done wonders for me trying to make some decisions in the last few months.
Yeah, buying the $10 sample is worth its weight in gold. I've seen, you can pre-order, swatches and tape it to the wall. You can go get the little tabs, paper tablets, that give you the paint color, the swatches. They never do it justice. And you're looking at something that's a 2x2 square or even a 12x12 square. And it's just totally different when you actually get the paint itself, get a paintbrush, paint it on different parts of the home, and see what it does. One of the biggest things that know the difference of is what a paint color is on the inside of a home versus what it is on the exterior of the home. Of course, we've been riding this wave for the last, I don't know how many years, 5 to 10 years, of people wanting the exterior of their home painted white. And white's one of those colors that there's a whole array of white. And, people will see a color and go, oh, like for instance, Pure White by Sherwin-Williams. Oh, this looks great. I'm going to paint my house. When you paint the exterior of the home, it is like bright white, right? Like it's almost, glowing. And you don't have to do that on the exterior. You can actually take a tone that's about, 20 light reflective value, decimals different, as a darker tone and paint it on the exterior of the home. And because of all the natural light, it's gonna look white. It's gonna get what you want without it being, extremely glowing, if you will. So, nevertheless, getting those paint colors, putting the samples on the walls, inside and outside, is a no-brainer. There was a time over the last couple of years where Sherwin-Williams ran out of those samples. It made it difficult. You just had to stick to your palette. Unless you're just taking a complete blind risk. But now the samples are back, so you can get this done. But I would say that, Ashton, you're exactly right on following those trends out there. Another big thing, just jumping right in, something you could do with no money, and I know this just from my years of traditional real estate, of bringing a buyer into a house. And one of the number one things that you can do is leave lights on, open windows, let natural light into the home, pull your blinds up, or at least open them up, and leave doors open. Don't have doors shut. When people walk into your home and it's dark and lights are off and there's no natural light, they feel like they're in somebody else's house. And buyers immediately, within 5 seconds, typically make a decision if they want to pursue the house or not. Sometimes they just, go along with the ride and, okay, we're here, we might as well walk through it. But most of the time, they've already made a decision if it's something they want or not. And then turning on music is another simple thing you can do. Obviously, something that's easy listening, that's something that's more, attractive to everybody. You're not going to be playing gangster rap when you go in there. You want something that's going to be attractive to everybody or be soothing, and, just something to kind of get somebody to relax and feel like, hey, I'm not in a stranger's house. I'm actually in a model home or a home that's for sale, and they're welcoming me into this house wide open, right? We always used to say, treat it like it's your most important family member that you haven't seen in 2 years, and they're going to come to your house. How do you want to present your home to them? And that's one of the things to think about, just tips and tricks. It's pretty easy, and it doesn't cost you anything. Obviously, if you're going to spend money and do some paint, we could do a whole segment on talking about design and different things like that, because obviously that's a passion of mine. Grew up being an artist, so I definitely get into different design ideas and trends and just how to create different palettes and works of art in the home space itself. But anyways, that's some ideas I have.
Cool. Well, today we're talking about how to get your house ready to sell. And I have a friend that's about to list, and we've had this conversation with him. Some of the things, that we can talk about are more of a design, with a design eye. I have a stager that I like to use, and Rebecca Bowler, if you're in the DFW area, for sure is a great stager and does a great job for a wonderful price. And she has a really reasonable fee that she'll charge just to come do a consultation and walk through the house, give you an idea of, okay, I would get rid of this, I would keep this, we can use this piece of furniture. And if you do that on the front end of trying to get ready to sell, you're probably going to pack up all this. Well, you're not probably. You're going to pack up all this stuff anyway. So you can either do it now or you can do it in a scramble right before you've got to go. So I would suggest pack up as much stuff as possible, especially if it's after the advice of a professional. Go ahead and pack it up, get rid of it, put it in the garage or in storage. Just create that space there and try to create as much of an open environment from a walk space, from a visual space that you can. You want to take the personal stuff out, all the really personal pictures, the really odd, real personal design choices you might have made, you might want to neutralize. But you can pay a professional less than a couple $100 to come in and give you an hour's worth of their time to give their 2 cents, and it will be worth a lot if you do that. So that's where I would start there. Now, I know on the other thing that you can do is start to anticipate what's going to come up on an inspection report, because they're going to do an inspection. An inspector is going to get paid money to come in and nitpick your house. So you can't fix every little bitty thing, but for instance, downspouts come up on every inspection report. You want your downspout to be pointed out. I think it's 4 feet away from the base. You want to have your concrete spout directors and all that. You can do some things like that. You can make sure that the dirt is not too low on your foundation or too high on your foundation. That's going to come up. If you have a little bit of roof issue, go ahead and get a roofer out there to fix some of the roof problems. Tavis, are there any other basic, not too expensive, not renovating your house type things that you would suggest someone really paying attention to kind of preempt some of the typical inspection issues that come up?
Yeah, slow drains. Slow drains can create, quite the concern of the inspector and the buyer, because that can be a result of many different things. So if you have slow drains, get that taken care of prior to listing the home. And a lot of times it's just hair, right? It's just hair that's built up in the sink trap and cause it to drain slow. But that's an easy fix that can be done prior to putting your house on the market. Obviously, anything that's just not working right, light bulbs. I mean, simple stuff, right? Your garage, if it needs to be, the door needs to be tuned up, any doors not latching, deadbolts not latching, anything that's out of adjustment, doors that don't shut all the way. If the house just has had settlement and really doesn't have a lot of major issues. And then we get into some of the big important things that I think is helpful when you're selling your home, to get in front of it. If you've had foundation work in the past, and you might have some settlement cracks, you might have a couple doors that are out of adjustment, especially if you've been in a drought like we've been this last summer, go ahead and spend the money on an engineer to come out and do a engineer report prior to putting your property on the market, and have that as part of your seller's disclosure packet.
Yep.
That'll help you get in front of all of the freebie foundation inspections that take place, and say that you need 20 piers when you don't. Roofs right now are big scrutiny. There's a lot of inspectors out there that want to defer the roof findings to a professional, and then you get into a battle of the roofer representing the buyer and wanting to claim insurance claims, etc. If you get a roofer out there that you trust ahead of time, the roofer is going to be able to tell you if there's anything that might be worth claiming on insurance ahead of the curve, or tell you that it's in good shape, or maybe just getting up there with a can of spray paint and sealing the vent stacks and painting the vent stacks again. Just doing some minor stuff that might cost you a couple $100 just to seal things up, to make sure that you have no water penetration anywhere or any kind of issues with that. That can go a long way. So just doing some of those things. I mean, we all have deferred maintenance, and just kind of going through some of the things that get away from us over time, until they become a big problem. Those are things that the inspectors are looking for. Smoke detectors, right? That's an easy thing to do. Make sure your batteries are in there. You can even buy, the current code now is you're supposed to have a smoke detector in every bedroom, and then the adjacent hallway directly outside the bedroom doorway. You can buy battery-operated smoke detectors at Home Depot pretty cheap, and install those in each room. And again, it's just going to help you, on the inspections as well. So those are little simple things that you can do. We get back into staging. If you have a vacant home, 100%, 100% do I
Definitely
concur to go ahead and hire a stager and get it staged. I mean, the majority of properties right now I see on the market that are sitting are vacant homes. And if you look at them, they may not be so bad, but I mean, a vacant home just looks terrible. And there's not a lot you can do, especially if it's a lived-in vacant home, with different paint colors in each room, because the paint colors make no sense because there's no furniture to coordinate what they were thinking, So if you stage that home, and especially if you just do the main areas, your master bedroom, your family room, your dining area, and they add a couple little fake plants in the kitchen and the bathrooms, man, it's worth its weight in gold, to spend $2,000, even $2,500 to get that home staged. And as a listing agent, you guys should be encouraging your clients to do this, and you're going to do way better on the market right now if you do that, because not only do the pictures not look the best, but when people actually walk in the home and the ACs are turned way up and the home smells stagnant and it has kind of a funky smell left over from the last people's furniture, and it's just this big wide open space, people don't feel at home in it. So it's much easier to, even if the home's not really updated, just staging it with the right furniture and making sure that the home is clean and smells good is going to go a long way.
Definitely. I 100% agree on the staging. It's money well spent. So whether you're getting a consultation because you're going to use your own furniture, or maybe they can bring in a few pieces that just fit better or a little bit more updated, there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to be moving your stuff anyway. The average price right now is 97% of asking. So on average, people are coming down around 3% around here. That's $12,000. So if you could maybe preempt that, do staging, sell a little bit quicker, and only come down 1.5%, you're still going to make money. So you're going to move it quicker. It's going to look better in pictures, all those things by staging. So I'm a huge, huge fan of that. And you're not going to fix everything in a house. Those inspectors are going to find something. But what you can do is you can try to reduce the number of things that they're finding, because a lot of times what happens is the sellers, they sort of package them all together and they say, well, we want these things and, give us $5,000. So if you can just reduce that overall list, it's going to look better. It looks like you've prepared the house, and there's just less ammunition they have to come and say, well, we want X, Y, and Z. And, again, you're not going to fix everything, but you can go a long way to just make it look like you've made the effort and you've addressed a lot of the minor things. So, super great tips, Tavis. And, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, they wanted to buy a house from you or sell a house to you for an investment, how is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You can find me on social media. I am Tavis, like Travis with no R. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. And I'm happy to respond to you. Just send me a DM, and we can go from there.
Well, good deal. And I am Ashton Hines. I am the Dallas real estate guy on Instagram and Twitter, even though I don't do Twitter, X, whatever it is, not just yet, but I will. And we're getting our way onto YouTube. So please come find us there. Also, with this podcast, do everything you can to share it with friends. If you're in the Dallas area and you're in real estate business, please send this to a colleague or a friend that likes the real estate business. And we're just trying to reach as many people as possible. Like the podcast, give us a little review. It does wonders for the algorithm, and it actually makes me feel really good. And if nothing else, that's what you should do it for. So that being said, that is today's episode. We will come back to you next week with our next Real Estate Heavyweights University as we take another step into flipping a house. And so if that interests you, please check it out. I hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon.